The NFL running back. Throughout NFL's long history, this position has seen immense talent, an insane amount of unique styles, and some of the most just overall athletically gifted players in all of NFL's history. But over the past decade, this position is one that is increasingly becoming devalued. As the NFL continues to shift further away from 3 yards in a cloud of dust football many grew up watching, and as more and more teams become discouraged about investing in the position, the NFL running back has been belittled down to a size we honestly have never seen before. I mean, in 2024, the NFL running back average salary is sitting right around the same amount for a National Football League's punter. But as this football season goes on, one thing that I can't help but notice is that the NFL running back is seeking its revenge. So just exactly what happened to our great NFL running backs? Why are they being devalued, and just how far does this extend? I mean, 2 decades ago, we saw 4 running backs win the MVP trophy. 32 were selected in the first round from 2000 to 2010, and some guys were even signing massive contracts flirting with $100 million. But in the modern NFL, our running backs are holding out training camps. If one is selected in the first round, it literally makes headlines, typically filled with criticism.
Detroit Lions select Jahmyr Gibbs.
The Falcons pick is in. I think we'd all be stunned if it's not Jalen Carter.
Wow!
Who? Look at that face.
No!
What? Bijan Robinson?
No!
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa.
And we haven't seen a running back win the MVP trophy since 2012. Now, we know that the NFL running back has been the feature for so many offenses in the league for as long as pretty much ever. And we've been blessed to see some of the most iconic players this sport has ever seen because of it. But as the league continues to innovate, so have the effective ways to move the ball. In 2003, the average for all NFL teams was eclipsing just over 200 passing yards in a game, while completing around 58% of the passes and mixing in just over 1 interception. But from that season on, NFL teams' passing yards per game began to steadily increase, reaching upwards of 240 passing yards per game in 2015, 16, and again in 2020. The average completion percentage followed this trend, increasing to 65%, and interceptions thrown would fall to under 1 a game on average for the first time in NFL's history. Objectively, the league has become better at moving the ball through the air since the early 2000s, and the MVP winners in the last decade and a half also can back this up.
And the 2023 AP Most Valuable Player presented by Invisalign is Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers,
Patrick Mahomes.
Matt Ryan.
The 2017 AP Most Valuable Player is Tom Brady, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Brady.
15 out of the last 16 years, we have seen a quarterback win the MVP trophy. And to be fair, from the abundance of passing attacks that have mounted up to 4,000 and even 5,000 yards with 40-something touchdowns in a season, that we started to see further entices leaving the idea to just
Run the ball. Run the ball. God dang it, run the dang ball.
in the past. And because it's a copycat league, one team's successful air raid offense is easily another team's dream. Inside the 2010s and 2020s, we watched 158 quarterbacks and receivers walk across the stage in the first round of the NFL draft, opposed to the mere 25 we saw at the running back position. And this is because, well, wouldn't everyone love to have one of those MVP quarterback seasons that we've seen torch the league for the past 2 decades? But all of this further leads into the biggest problem for the modern NFL running back. Because one thing that will always follow the first rounders and the MVP trophies is, well, money. As I mentioned before, the NFL running back average salary is right around $1.8 million, slightly outweighing punters and lawn snappers, but still underneath every other position, including the average NFL kicker.
What are your 2 cents on the running back market in the business world of the National Football League right now, Mark Ingram?
I think it's criminal. I think it's a shame that we have come to this, and that they're devaluing the position, and you have some of the best players in the league, regardless of position, who are coming up for long-term contracts, and they're trying to control the salaries, they're trying to control the market, and devalue the position and not compensate these guys for what they have earned and what they provide to their teams.
In the summer of 2023, Pro Bowl running back Joe Mixon took a $4 million pay cut after reconstructing his contract with the Cincinnati Bengals, only to end up being traded away the following year for a 7th round pick. In the same year, Aaron Jones also took a $5 million pay cut to again be released at the end of the season. Austin Eckler, another profound running back, would demand a better contract ahead of that season. And last but not least, Jonathan Taylor, who had just became the youngest player to ever reach 2,000 scrimmage yards and 20 touchdowns after swiftly breaking the single-season franchise rushing yards record, and while leading the entire NFL in rushing yards, demanded a trade, had his agent arguing with the team's owner on Twitter, and was forced to sit out the first 4 weeks of the 2023 season with a self-denied injury, all to reach a new contract agreement. This list doesn't only end here. Just a few months ago, before the 2024 season, we saw running backs like Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry join the long list of disregarded running backs after their team refused a contract extension. And even those not seeking new contracts, well, maybe they should. Christian McCaffrey has been one of the league's most talented players for the last 10 or so years, and last season he went on a tear, scoring a touchdown in 17 straight games, tying an NFL record. But somehow he has the 110th highest contract in the league and is nowhere near the highest paid on his own team. And just a few years ago, he was only traded for a handful of late round draft picks. But all the lack of MVP trophies, lack of first rounders, and undeniable financial shortcomings haven't necessarily meant the involvement these running backs have in majority of NFL offenses has changed. I mean, in 2022, running backs accounted for 37% of offensive total yards in the NFL, and the average rushing yards per attempt has even seen a minimal increase this decade in comparison to the one before. And that's not to mention that running backs are definitely playing a role in today's passing game. In 2018, running backs accounted for over 2,700 receptions and 22,000 yards in the entire season, which ranks top 6 out of every season the NFL has seen. But the value for NFL running backs continues to dwindle, and all of this unforgiving reality has quite literally forced some of the league's most talented players into a living nightmare. Now, teams have been able to navigate neglecting this position by having a revolving door of running backs. In fact, teams have actually began using a running back by committee approach, where they will deploy 2 to maybe 3 running backs in a season, all typically on lower end salaries, rotating in and out. And these running backs are basically competing for snaps, as teams will ultimately ride the hot hand. And because more and more teams aren't selecting these players as early in the draft and aren't extending nearly as many contracts to this position, an NFL team can find a variety of pretty reliable running backs in later rounds of the draft and through offseason free agency, all considerably for a cheaper price. And by following the trend of running back production by age, NFL teams are starting to take educated guesses on who, when, and just how much to pay these running backs. So it's safe to say, at the very least, the league is nowhere near as running back friendly as it once was. But now that we know the full story, what do you think? Are NFL teams flat out scamming our great running backs? Or is the position truly not worth the investment? And me, I think even posing this question has genuinely pissed off some of the baddest dudes in the NFL. And the numbers these guys are putting up are definitely hard to argue with. After being chewed up and spit out by the business side of the NFL, in 2024, Saquon Barkley has over 1,000 rushing yards through 11 weeks. And in week 7, he tallied 176 rushing yards, the 6th most out of any running back in a road game, all against his former team, and he didn't even touch the ball in the 4th quarter.
You're 13 yards away from your career high. I would love for you to get that. Like, I'm going to take out all the starters if they don't score.
You good? Let them eat.
You sure?
Yeah, good. So I'd rather see the young boys eat.
Joe Mixon is currently sitting at 10 touchdowns, which is tied for the 3rd most in the league.
Hand to Mixon, cut back, Joe Mixon, goodbye, touchdown Texans.
And he sat out 3.5 weeks due to injury. Derrick Henry is literally the frontrunner to win the MVP trophy and is on pace to break the NFL single-season rushing yards record.
Run it up the middle, bouncing off, one play, Henry takes it home,
for his 100th career rushing touchdown.
Austin Eckler at age 29 is 5th in receiving yards out of all running backs and has a crazy 11.1 yards per catch. Josh Jacobs is sitting at 3rd in rushing yards, and these are just the running backs that have dealt with the harsh reality of the NFL business. Look, I've never built an NFL team, and I certainly don't have millions of dollars to give one of these running backs. But watching the 2024 NFL season, one thing to me is clear. I'm definitely trying to stay within their good graces. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, maybe that means you enjoy content like this. Feel free to like and subscribe, as I'll be covering the more interesting stories in all of sports.